All right. So if you paid attention to the email this morning, one thing that we're going to talk about today is sugar. Sugar is one of the most demonized ingredients in the health and fitness world. We hear things like sugar's toxic, sugar causes belly fat, or you have to cut out sugar completely if you want to get lean, right? But here's the truth. Sugar isn't inherently bad. I mean, you hear people say food is bad, and that creates a negative mindset toward food. So I really don't want to ever say that a certain food is bad. But going back to sugar, your body actually runs on glucose, and sugar in its simplest form is just that. It's either glucose or fructose. Your brain, your muscles, they literally need sugar to function. It's not poison like a lot of people demonize it to be and plaster it all over the place. Sugar is bad, sugar is the enemy, things like that. So if sugar isn't bad, why does it get such a bad rep, right? Well, it's not just about the calories, which again, a lot of the down talk about sugar is because it's found in a lot of processed foods and empty calories such as sodas, right? I mean, if you get a can of Coke, I have no idea how much is in it. I think it's like 20 or 30 grams, maybe somewhere in there. It's a good bit. It's not just about the weight gain because sugar doesn't cause weight gain. A surplus in energy balance is what causes weight gain. So that's out of the question. The bigger issue, though, with sugar is how it disrupts your gut microbiome, and that can trigger a cascade of other problems downstream. So let's break that down. Now, until I got into the bodybuilding space and learning about the different aspects of everything, several years ago, I really didn't understand how important the gut microbiome is. This essentially is your second command center. Brain is number one. Your gut is number two in command. So you've got trillions of bacteria living in your gut. It sounds gross. It really does. If you think about it, there's trillions of bacteria in your stomach, right? But you need them. They help with digestion, immune function, vitamin production, inflammation control, and even mood regulation. And when your bacteria are in a good balance, right? There's a good balance of good and bad. You feel good. Your energy is steady. Your appetite is regulated. Your digestion is smooth, and inflammation stays low for the most part. But when the balance is off, you get a thing called gut dysbiosis, which is kind of a hot topic nowadays. Everybody wants to get a GI map done, and several $100s, five,
Money
six,
was
seven
taken.
hundred
I said,
dollars
you know what?
to get
I might as well pick them up.
so, sorry, what that was. But anyway, um, crap. My screen just messed up. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. When the balance is off, this gut dysbiosis, right? And like I was saying before, it's kind of a hot topic nowadays. You want to get a gut GI map done, a gut panel done. This a long analysis of each type of bacteria that's in your gut, what the ratio is and all this kind of good stuff. And if you do have gut dysbiosis, you may notice cravings, bloating, brain fog, poor recovery, low energy, harder fat loss, things like that. Right now, if you have any of these issues, don't directly say, well, I got gut dysbiosis. I mean, you could have some starting symptoms of it, right? But these aren't directly correlated to gut dis like if you have bloating, right? It doesn't mean, oh, I got gut dysbiosis. Let me go order a GI map. Don't do that. But that's just something to be aware of, right? With sugar. So where does sugar actually fit into the picture with all of this? So high amounts of refined sugar, especially from processed foods, not fruit and not carbs. These feed the bad bacteria inside of your gut, right? And over time, this is going to create an imbalance. The bad bacteria, which are pathogenic strains, they grow rapidly when refined sugar is present. And the good bacteria, the kind that keeps, the inflammation low, and all the positive that we just mentioned, they shrink in population. So there becomes an imbalance, more bad bacteria than there is good bacteria. And so this shift can lead to increased cravings for more sugar. And yes, it is that vicious of a cycle. That's why if you ever, get into a dieting phase and you're transitioning out and you start to eat a little bit of sugar, that those cravings of I want more sugary foods, that's not just in your brain, it's in your gut, your second brain, right? Um, it causes more inflammation in your gut lining itself, which can lead to a thing called leaky gut, which is not good to get. Reduced production of short chain fatty acids, which this basically means it supports your gut healing and your immune health. So just overall health of your immune system and the capability of the gut to heal itself, and then disrupted blood sugar regulation, and appetite signals, leptin, ghrelin, things like that. So basically, it's not the cookie that you eat that messes you up. It's the chronic intake of ultra processed, highly refined, sugary foods that starves your good bacteria and feeds the bad bacteria that just throws everything out of whack, right? So, with all this being said, you don't need to fear sugar, I guess is the best way to put it, but you do need to respect it and know what the downstream effect can be if you don't have it in very small moderations, if that makes sense. So sugar doesn't need to be eliminated completely from the diet. You can still enjoy, a sweet treat and hit your goals. But if your diet is pretty much, I'm not gonna say full of, but it's composed of a good bit of high refined sugar, low fiber foods, it's going to work against your gut health. And again, this affects everything from fat loss to sleep to mood to energy, just an array of things, right? So the question is, what can you do instead? So 5 simple strategies to support your gut health in itself, and even if you do eat a little bit of sugar, is number one. You guys should probably know this: prioritize fiber-rich foods. Fiber actually feeds the good bacteria inside of your guts. So let's think fruits, veggies, oats, beans, flaxseed. What's another one? The little BB type things, chia seeds, that sort of thing, right? Um, and then going to point number two, we can balance sugar with protein or fat. So instead of eating sugar just by itself, like you grab a honey bun or a candy bar, whatever the case may be, just straight up sugar, right? Pair it with something else, like Greek yogurt, nuts, almond butter, whole food meal. Those things in conjunction with the sugar is going to slow that absorption rate down and reduce those big blood sugar spikes. Watch your daily sugar source, right? A little sugar from fruit or the dark chocolate, that's not the issue at all. The problem is when you're getting it from soda, snacks, again, like the honey buns, and processed carbs just all day long, right? That's why that I'm not a huge fan of having people eat very sugary cereals like post-workout, like a lot of people tend to let people do. Not because I mean, it obviously does taste good, right? But if somebody is having some gut issues and you throw that on top of it, it may affect them, it may not, but you're just kind of asking for trouble. Like, why not eat something a little more less refined, less processed? Like, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I'm sure is loaded with chemicals, right? Um, and then you could also try things like probiotics or even like fermented foods, like kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, or a probiotic supplement can also help reintroduce that beneficial bacteria back into the gut. And to be completely honest, I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to probiotics, simply because if you think about it, the shipping process to get it here, it's stored in a hot warehouse, it's in a hot truck. Are we really sure that these live cultures that are sitting in this hot warehouse, hot truck, getting moved around, bumped around, coming from God knows where, what effect is that having on the potency of these live cultures, right? So I'm kind of on the fence with those. The more that I've looked into it, I'm not sure how much they actually work. But again, so that's just my opinion. And then finally, support your gut lining. Something that I do every day, I drink beef bone broth, collagen, take L-glutamine, and then just plus, just overall gut health, just trying to not overload your gut with a bunch of nasty, I don't want to say bad food, but just nasty, ultra processed food can help repair and protect your gut lining over time. So the end all be all is your gut is very important. It's pretty much like the intersection with everything else. If something is in the brain, it's probably attached to the gut as well too. And there's an array of messages that go from I think it's called the gut brain axis. I'm not sure like what the term of it is, but I mean, if you haven't ever heard of this connection before, there's a big connection in between the gut and the brain. So And with sugar, as you all know, it hits those dopamine effects. And again, anytime that you have a high dopamine effect, you want more, you want more, and you want more. So again, that can just turn into that vicious cycle and just keep those things going. And I don't want to say addicted because that's kind of a stigmatized bad word in today's society. But I mean, in reality, you could get addicted to sugar because of its high dopamine effect. And there you go. You have issues. You have gut dysbiosis, and you have and influx in calories, weight's coming on, you're becoming insulin resistant, just a domino effect downstream, right? But at the end of it, you can have sugar, small amounts, not, I just got done working out, let me go slam a honey bun. Don't do that. Let's find a better source to, you know, intake if we can, right? And just be mindful of what you eat. I guess is the best way to put it. So, but with any and all of that, anybody got any questions as far as sugar goes? Did any of you have any kind of idea about any of that? Or was that pretty much common knowledge for you guys? If you read the email, this should be common knowledge by now. But anybody got anything to add?
I was curious about the source because similar to sugar, just high fructose corn syrup and some of that stuff is always even more demonized, right? Like, does the way that it's processed, like I know, like maybe corn syrup is example of it being like super concentrated form compared to like natural sugar. Is that like worse, I guess, because it's more processed than basic white table sugar?
That's a good question. I did see in the literature that I was reading that the more processed it is, the more ultra processed is the way that they described it. The more of an issue it becomes when it becomes to gut health. I'm guessing that just comes from how it's processed, how it's refined. I would assume. I mean, if you're just eating straight table sugar and then you go eat something like I don't know, a nerd's candy or something. I mean, which one is going to be worse for you? Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I would probably, if we're just looking at the sugar aspect of things, maybe they're both equivalent, maybe. But then if you get into the dyes and the additives and all that stuff, then maybe you can make an issue that the ultra processed nerds candy is worse off, right? But if we're looking at that aspect, I would have to say that either way that you put it is probably not beneficial nor healthy in any way. And on a scale of 1 to 10, if something is say something that's less processed is a 7, and the highly ultra processed is a 9 or a 10. I mean, it's still a 7. I mean, it's still kind of up there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess that's the best way to describe it. I honestly, I'm not gonna say I don't know, which I will always admit if I don't know something, but that is a good question. But that's what I assume it is. So
Yeah, it makes sense.
Um, I just will say, I wonder if this correlates to the cookie cake that I sent in the chat yesterday.
yeah,
um, but no, that was just kind of ironic timing. But I guess my question is like in terms of if you're talking about like sugar substitutes, then like stevia and Splenda or anything, is that a better alternative than like pure just sugar if you're thinking?
I would say yeah. Hang on, let me plug the computer up. It's about to go dead. Hang on, wait, let me plug it up. But yes, I would say so. Those are definitely better alternatives. I mean, there's studies that I think the last study that I read that it showed that artificial sweeteners aren't as bad as people make it out to be. Um, there's a lot of I've even heard like some coaches like the closer that you get to a show, they'll pull out like pre-workout and any kind of like supplement that you take that has like artificial flavors and like sweeteners and things like that in it because it can cause some gut issues. But I think the more and more research that's coming out is showing that those are, I guess, okay in essence, and they are better than the ultra processed which I guess stevia, I guess too would be. Well, I don't know if they would consider that stuff ultra processed, but I do know that from what I've read that those are quote unquote the better alternative option. I guess is the best way to put it. So,
Okay.
which I mean, if you put a packet of sugar in your coffee and then you put a squirt of stevia in there, I think that's going to be better for you on a lot of aspects. So, anybody else got anything at all? Everybody else good?
There's one thing I'll mention with this stevia conversation, just from a current or in remission diabetic, the insulin spike from the artificial sweeteners like stevia, Splenda, whatever, is non-existent compared to like sugar. If I have
Really? Okay.
regular sugar or high fructose corn syrup, any of that stuff, like it's instant blood sugar spike.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I guess that would then support the basis of that it is on the quote unquote healthier side than using, refined table sugar. I would assume so, which is what
I
I
have no idea
thought.
about the gut health aspect of it whatsoever, but I can say from like at least from the glucose portion, um,
And
it's
that's a big
unhealthy.
deal too. So I mean that's that to me that makes sense. So yeah, and I bet that's why Jacob didn't sleep very well last night because he had some of that cookie cake that he talked about yesterday. So I
Yeah,
think he
he was
told
telling
on
us he
himself.
didn't have any, but I bet you he snuck in like half that cake at least. At
Uh,
least
I think he just told on himself.
18 hours sugar
I had a piece of a crust. I'm not gonna lie about that.
with a foot of frosting.
No, not with the frosting. No, I don't like that. That's gross.
Um, All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, I guess we'll roll on. We got done 10 minutes early today. So, oh, and I will say, I think next month I'm going to have a special guest on the Wednesday call. It's still in the works. I think it's going to be the last week of May. I think is when I'm going to have him on. Some of you know this individual, some of you don't. He's not local, but I asked him to come on and talk with you guys about a certain topic. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks, which will be cool. I've never had a guest on the Wednesday call, so it'll be cool to sit back and watch that happen. So, but outside of that, as always, if you guys got any questions about this, just let me know. And I appreciate you guys showing up. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and we'll see you.